Hello, welcome to Board Game Bonkers. I'm Jay Sears, and today we're going to take a look at the top 10 dice games. Now, before we get into this list, please do consider hitting that subscribe button because around 98% of you who watch my videos aren't subscribed. Now, it's free, doesn't cost you anything, and you're guaranteed a video every single week, which I put up every Saturday. And please do consider giving the videos a like as well if you do enjoy them. Now, with this list, I did have to consider what was put on it because I didn't want to put any particular combat or fighting type games. The reason why is because a lot of the lists would have been made up of those games or racing games as well. And for me, those two lie in their own categories, which might consider doing some top 10 or top 6 videos based around those at some point, but trying to focus primarily as the dice being the main mechanism and drive of these games. So let's head off and start with our number 10, and that is Elder Sign. And in Elder Sign, what players will be doing is you'll be taking on the roles of investigators. And what you're doing is race against time to try and stave off the imminent return of the Ancient One. And I'll come to that in just a second. You'll be armed with tools and allies, and you go on an adventure to try and locate the Elder Sign, which is the eldritch symbols that you have, and they'll be used to seal away the Ancient Ones and try and win the game. Now, to locate the Elder Signs, what you've got to do is successfully endure these adventures within the museum. And then a counter mechanism makes an Ancient One appear, so they'll come on at different points throughout the game if you're not quick enough. Now, you must then battle the Ancient One. Then combat's quite clever and uses thematic dice and this mechanism against the monsters, and the difficulty of staying sane and healthy while you're going through this adventure and what you've done determines sometimes the combat and outcome of your fights with these monsters. So if you kind of like a slightly medium late, I would say, type of game that has a combination of quite a lot of dice chucking, but if you like that kind of Ameritrash feel, but also going on this kind of adventure, then I think you might quite enjoy that. It's not a massive game, but it's got a lot to consider and a lot to unpack in the game, and it certainly gives a bit of sense of excitement as well. So let's now move in to our number 9. And I was aiming on about putting this on the list or not because it's a very light game and this is a stripped down version of the original Pandemic. This is Pandemic the Cure. And what you'll be doing in Pandemic the Cure is that you'll be trying to discover the cures for 4 diseases, which is the same as Pandemic itself. And what the players will do, they'll roll dice each turn and they'll determine their available action because the dice have different symbols that determines what actions you do. Now you can travel between major regions of the world, so they're all in a circle and they go round and they're numbered 1 to 6. So you can move around from region to region that's adjacent to one another, or if you've got a plane symbol, you can then go to any region. You'll be trying to treat diseases, you'll be collecting samples, which are the dice, and then you'll be rolling for samples at the end of the round to try and discover a cure. Now, each player has a unique role with special abilities, such as the dispatcher who can move others, or the medic who can excel in treating diseases. And then you can re-roll your dice to try and improve your actions, the ones you haven't used, but doing so does have a risk because you might get an epidemic that comes out, and that's a particular symbol you have in your dice. Now, at the end of each turn, the infection dice are rolled to spread new infections, so you'll be drawn out the bag depending where you are on the infection track. And if any regions accumulate more than 3 of the same type of dice in a single colour, then an outbreak happens. Now, you lose if you go up to the marker the track too far. I quite enjoy this because there's a lot of dice you chuck and there's a lot of luck in it, but I do kind of find it's a little bit too easy when I was playing this, and we had to adjust the difficult level, and that just basically means adjusting the track and where you start in that particular track. So that makes it a little bit more difficult. So you can change the difficulty, and it does recommend in the book what you start, but I've even found hard kind of medium, a little bit too easy, so we kind of go to the next stage on the track. but there's a lot of dice chucking, there's a little bit of luck. There are also cards you can acquire. So if you roll dice with a cross in it, then you can save them up and spend them to acquire some cards that will help you. But I like this because I can get the family involved and get the kids involved. And I'll give you an example. My son, who is 7, can play this game and really enjoys it. So that gives you an idea, and obviously children are at different levels, everyone's unique, but it gives you an idea in terms of the level that this is at. But it has enough in it, it's a little bit fun, it's quite quick as well, but it's certainly worth considering. Don't snuff your nose at it. If you like a lot of dice chucking, you'll get a lot of dice chucking in this game. So let's now move in to our number 8. And our number 8 is Kingsburg. This is a popular game amongst a lot of our board gaming community. So what do you do in Kingsburg? And in this game, what you'll be doing, it was spread over 5 years, and you have a total of 20 turns. Now each year includes 3 production seasons for gathering resources, you'll be building structures, and you'll be training your troops. Now every 4th turn is winter, and that's where players must individually combat any invading army that comes in. Now, players will be collecting resources by influencing advisors in the King's Council that's there, and then influence dice are placed on the council members, and that's where the dice comes in a lot of the times, so it's a combat. And then the players with the lowest dice sum will choose first. Now, you can balance poor dice rolls because sometimes in games poor dice rolls don't work well, but in this game it does, which was one of the reasons why I like this game. Now, each advisor grants different resources, soldiers, victory points, and other advantages. Now, after the 5 years, the player who develops their territory and pleases the king wins the most. So there's a bit of kind of building your territory. And this isn't a grandiose big game. And I suppose that's one of the drawings with this, because it's a smaller game, but it still has a bit of crunch in it. And there are, quite a few dice because you'll be obviously rolling and placing them out in different places. But I do like the variety this kind of offers, but it doesn't go into too much detail and it isn't too crunchy either. So it's got a nice kind of almost midway, lightweight kind of balance to it, where you could get some of your family involved in this. But it's highly popular and it's definitely one it's worth checking out. So let's now move into my number 7. This is Tiny Epics Galaxies, particularly Blastoff. This is a second version of Galaxies. This was very popular when it came out, and it's quite an older game now, but I still like what it delivers in a small package. It is kind of light to medium weight. Now, what we'll be doing, each player will control their empire. So essentially, you have this kind of card strat / board, which is your empire, your kind of your home, if you like, and you'll be aiming to try and colonize other planets that are out there. So these cards are planets. Now, the game uses a dice rolling mechanics. You'll be rolling your dice, and that will determine the strength of your galaxy, because obviously each dice has a different symbol, and the symbols represent different actions you can take. Now, you'll be doing things like moving your spaceships, you'll be increasing resources, or you'll be advancing your influence over planets. Now, you must try and plan your turns, because taking actions in a particular order will be of benefit, and you can also follow your opponents by spending a resource. Players must also try and look at the new planets, trying to earn victory points, colonize them, and you also get a benefit from those planets as well, which you then put at the bottom of your kind of player board, and that'll give you an ongoing benefit. I really like how quite streamlined this is, and it isn't crunchy at all. I find it quite light and quite straightforward to play, but I do generally like this because I much prefer dice that have symbols in them, and then they give me actions. I can determine what actions I do. Now, there's some mitigation in this. You can spend the resource to re-roll dice, for example. So I do like what it offers. I think the kind of graphic design is really nice. The art's beautiful. I really do enjoy this for such a small package. I think this offers enough, and I think the expansion it comes with, which unfortunately is only compatible with the first version, but you can use some of the expansion in this version. I think that makes the game a little bit better, and it just gives a little bit more crunch to it. So let's now move in to my number 6, and this is Dice Miner. And as you can expect, there's a lot of dice in this game, and this is quite straightforward. This is a light game, and this feels more like kind of dice collection, because you'll be grabbing your dice, And then what you'll be doing over the 3 rounds is you'll be rolling these custom dice and you put them into the mountain. And so you'll be drafting dice, and that's the kind of main graph of this game. And after each round, your scores will be tallied up and the dice will then be re-rolled again. And then the mountain is where the dice are placed on. And as you can see, you can get different types of mountains and some nice thematic looking ones. So really this is all about drafting dice. Now it uses a similar system to Las Vegas, if you're familiar with that, or Dice Age The Hunt, and we'll be rolling all your dice and you'll be grouping them by pip value. So all the 2s together, all the 3s together, and then you'll be placing them on to the mountain and you'll be bidding essentially, and that's what you'll be doing. So you'll be using dice in different ways, such as bidding on rooms, you'll be bidding on advertising, and then also you will be using home tours as well. So there's a lot of different ways you can use the dice, but it's quite straightforward and simple. 3 options to choose from, and you'll be looking at the row. Do I want the row? Which column of dice do I want? And obviously you can only take from the edge. It's fairly straightforward. You're rolling a bunch of dice. I find this a nice game to get kids involved in because it's fairly straightforward in the decisions they choose from. Do I choose that draft of dice or do I choose that draft of dice? And do I use it on one of these 3 actions? Which one? There's only 3 choices really. So it's quite straightforward for younger players to get into. And a lot of people like this because there's tons of dice to chuck. So let's now move in to our number 5, and this is Fantastic Factories, and a lot of people consider this a fantastic game. I thought it was okay, but I can see the appeal why people love it so much. So in Fantastic Factories, you'll be trying to manufacture goods or try and build this prestigious buildings, if you like, because you'll be collecting cards throughout the game, and you'll be rolling dice, and these are your worker dice and using them for worker dice placement. There's a bit of engine building, there's a bit of resource management, and some tabloid building, because you have lots of cards in front of you. So each round has 2 phases. You've got the market phase and the work phase. So in the market phase, you'll be choosing either to acquire a new blueprint for free, and then you place it in your hand as a card, or you'll pay to hire a contractor by discarding a blueprint card from your hand. Now, blueprints are used to construct new factories during the work phase, so you're basically using that card, spending the resources to then build it essentially. Now, contractors provide resources and allow additional dice rolls or give you extra dice. Now, in the work phase, all players will simultaneously roll the dice together and they'll use them to work workers. Now, build blueprint cards from your hand by activating the build cards by the actions that you've got, then you perform the actions on the card. You've got actions in your headquarters, and what you'll be doing is placing your dice, and what's quite clever is you can get sets of dice. The more sets you've got, the more powerful it is. It might be you need 2 3s, or you need to get a certain combination, which will give you a more powerful action at your headquarters. And you can also place your dice on the cards, i.e. the buildings that you've built from your blueprints, and what will happen is it'll activate that card and give you different abilities and things to do. So you can do different combos and trying to work out which combination do I do. I like this game where you've got quite straightforward, simple options, but as you build your tabloid, you have more options. Which cards do I activate from the buildings that I built? Do I go for more contractors because they give me abilities? Do I need more? But I need blueprint cards to get the contractors. So it's a bit of strategy and tactics involved in that, because you can kind of take a card maybe your opponent wants as well. But I really love the headquarters and using those dice and those combinations to try and get a better, stronger action. And I can see why so many people love this, and it was fun when I did play it, and I did enjoy it. So let's now move in to my next one. That's number 4, and this might be a surprise to a lot of people. It's a classic. But I really do love this game, and I really like how the dice work. And believe it or not, it's still one of the most popular games I played with families. And this was one of the original ones in Kickstarter, this Alien Frontiers. And so in Alien Frontiers, what you'll be doing is you'll be rolling a bunch of dice, and you'll be placing them in different spots around the galaxy to engage in different types of resource management, and you'll be colonizing the planet. Now, your goal is to build these colony dooms that you'll be placing onto the planet, and these different strategic locations to discover the different parts of the planet, and then you'll get a benefit if you've got the majority in that section or region of the planet. So what you'll be doing with resource management is assigning your dice, which are your ships, to the various orbital facilities to gather resources. And you need those resources because you need to build domes, which these are crucial as well. You can also get technology cards, which we'll come to in a second. And then you've got your planetary development. Now what you'll be doing is placing your dooms you've got, or tokens depending on the version you've got, to try and gain control of different territories on the planet, which then gives you some influence over specific orbital facilities and gives you that kind of strategic advantage. And then you've got your technology cards that you can acquire by placing your dice in a certain area to get the technology cards. Now, I really like everything that this game brings. I really remember the first time I played it, I just fell in love with it. I just loved how this worked. It was simple, it was straightforward, but it was still engaging. It's still thinky enough to some extent, because do I take that action? Do I take that action to place my dice there? You can acquire more dice, and that's one of the key strategies. Do I get the alien cards early and use that as part of my strategy? So I really like a couple of ways you can try and win this game, and I love there's two ways to get domes on the planet as well. I think it's a fantastic game. I really do enjoy it and highly recommend you check it out. And my next one, my number 3, is Roll for the Galaxy. This is highly popular with a lot of gamers, and there's a lot of cards and a lot of dice, as you would expect, because it's Roll for the Galaxy. So what you'll be doing is you'll be building your space empire, and your dice represent your populace, your population essentially, and then you'll be directing them to develop new technologies. You'll be settling different worlds and ships, essentially lots and lots of cards. And the player who best manages the workers and builds the most and biggest prosperities empire wins, and that's essentially all you'll be doing. Rolling dice, you'll be placing them on cards, acquiring new cards, etc. Simple and straightforward enough, but it does have a bit of crunch, and I think this is one of the more complex games on the list so far, probably arguably the most complex at the moment, and it has a bit of crunch and thinkiness, because which cards do I acquire? How do I use my dice? Do I use it for this? Do I activate this? So I really like that choice, and you can get a bit of tabloid building there as well in terms of the options that you've got with the cards. Let's now move in to my number 2, and I put this in the list quite high up because it's simple, it's straightforward, it's loved by a lot of people, a lot of families enjoy it, and it's called That's Pretty Clever. So originally this came out in Germany, then was released in other countries around the world. Now what you'll be doing is you'll be selecting your dice to try and fill these matching coloured areas, and your score sheet is as simple as that. You'll be aiming to try and create these kind of scoring chains and accumulating points in a few different ways. And on your turn, essentially, you just roll 6 dice of different colours. You choose one die to use, place it in your score sheet in the corresponding coloured area, and that is essentially it. It's really simple, straightforward. It's a light game, but it's fun. And it almost reminds me to some extent Quicks. That's another good game, and again, it feels a bit more like bingo. Arguably, this is a little bit more of a step up, but I think they've kind of taken ideas from Quicks. To be honest, I think if you've got Quicks, do you really need That's Clever? Maybe you want to step up. It's worth looking into it. Let's now move in to my number 1, and this is the one I was in about 2 minds of. Do I put in the list because only about 50% of the game is resolved around the dice, the rest is completely different. This is Grand Austria Hotel. Now you'll be rolling your dice and you'll be placing them in different action spots. And what you'll be doing once you've done that is you'll then be taking your actions by choosing one of the 6 actions, taking the dice associated with that action. The number of dice determines the strength or the quantity of the action you can perform. So they might include taking drinks, dishes, preparing rooms, or hiring staff. Now you've also got additional actions as well. So after you perform those main actions, you can remove one die from the action space and carry out an additional actions based on the resources in your staff abilities. What you'll be trying to do is attract guests as well, because you're trying to fulfill the orders in the restaurant and then build rooms. So there's a lot of strategy and tactics with this, but there's luck as well, because depending on your turn order, how the dice is rolled really can determine what action you take as well. Now, there are a couple of things with this that frustrate me. I found it a bit strange that I had to feed and provide drinks to my guests before I could prepare the room and get them in the hotel. I find that a bit strange. It's kind of sounded a little bit back to front, but Apart from that, I really like acquiring the cards that you got. Some cards give you staff cards, give you different abilities. I love that dice mechanism. Roll the dice, you assign them to different action spots. And it's really thinky because you're thinking, right, if I take that action, I really want that, but my opponent might take that action. Do I take that action? Do I build my rooms, or do I maybe get the ingredients first? I need to fulfill these orders for my guests. I really like that kind of tug and pull sense that it gives you in it, but I just love that drafting system. I think it was fantastic. For me, this game works far better with 2 players than other player counts. That's just my preference. And I can see in Board Game Geek, that's a preference for a lot of people. Really good, solid game, especially for couples. I'd highly recommend Grand Austria Hotel. That brings us to the end. I hope you've enjoyed this list of the top 10 dice games. And like I said, could have put many different dice games on this list, but I'm going to create separate lists because I think some of the others, such as racing games, combat games, deserve their own separate list. Now, please do consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already done so. Give this video a thumbs up, and please let me know in the comments down below, are there any particular dice games that we've missed off the list that you really enjoy? Because I'd love to hear your suggestions. That brings us to the end. Until next time, my name's Jay Sears. Take care.
This is Bonkers.